Hi guys, so let's start with chronic inflammation. I have made a PPT in which there are all the important points and I will be providing this PPT in the Telegram group. Also, I can't post the books directly on YouTube because of some copyright issues, so I have made PPT. Also, and this is very easy to grasp because all the important points which I highlight in the book are present in this PPT also. So let's start with the chronic inflammation. So, what are the basic features of chronic inflammation? Is that number one is its definition. It is a prolonged host response to persistent stimuli. Now, the stimuli is present, the injurious stimuli is present for a long time. Its duration is long. So, there is chronic exposure, a long time exposure. So, the host response to this persistent stimuli is known as chronic inflammation. What are the causes? The causes can be three. That number one, persistent infections by microorganisms that are difficult to eliminate. Now there are some microorganisms which just cannot be eradicated from our body very easily, and because of their presence we suffer from chronic inflammation for a long time. Number two is hypersensitivity and autoimmune diseases and immune responses. So all these are related, and for example rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, inflammatory bowel disease, allergic diseases. All these are the examples of hypersensitivity reactions, autoimmune diseases, and immune responses like inflammatory bowel disease, allergic diseases. These are all also causing chronic inflammation for a long time. The last is toxic agents. For example, in conditions like silicosis, atherosclerosis, in this there is deposition of silica and cholesterol respectively, and therefore we suffer from chronic inflammation. Now, what are the other basic features of chronic inflammation? That it is slower, it is of longer duration, the local signs and symptoms are less prominent. In the acute inflammation, there is so many signs and symptoms which are so much prominent, and we can just easily identify that he's or she is a patient of acute inflammation. But in chronic inflammation, the signs and symptoms are masked, but the tissue injury and fibrosis is more, so the damage is done more by chronic inflammation. The hallmark cell of chronic inflammation are monocyte, macrophages, and lymphocyte. In acute inflammation, it was neutrophil. So it is all, I've all taught acute inflammation in my previous video of pathology, so I will link it here or at the end of the video. You can go and see it. The hallmark cell, the major hallmark cell is the macrophage. So the three basic characteristics of chronic inflammation are: number one, infiltration of tissue with mononuclear cells, that are monocytes or macrophages and lymphocytes. Number two is tissue injury, and number three is attempts at repair or healing, which includes scarring, angiogenesis, and fibrosis. So what happens that the three characteristics will always be present in chronic inflammation, not related to from where it is happening, from who's causing it, but these three characteristics will always happen. Number one, there will be infiltration of the tissue. So all the mononuclear cells like monocytes, macrophages, lymphocytes, they will invade the tissue. There will be tissue injury, so there will be so much damage and necrosis. It can be caseating necrosis, non-caseating necrosis. And the last is attempts at repair and healing, and which involves there will be scarring. Angiogenesis means the number of capillary beds are increasing, and fibrosis. So fibrosis, because it's a part of healing and repair, so that is why the last characteristic of chronic inflammation is attempts at healing. Next we come to cells. So we discussed the hallmark cells were monocyte, macrophages, and lymphocytes. So we'll discuss one by one what are the roles of all these. So what is monocyte? Monocyte is produced from hematopoietic stem cell in the bone marrow, which are kidney shaped and has a lifespan of 1 day. So this is all about the monocyte, not so important, but you just have to remember what is a monocyte. Monocyte is a cell which is produced from the hematopoietic stem cell in the bone marrow. So it is the major precursor, the stem cells which get differentiated to form different types of cells. So they increase and produce monocytes. So monocytes are large kidney shaped leukocytes with a lifespan of 1 day. Then comes our macrophage. Macrophage is pretty important because when monocyte reaches the tissue, this is known as a macrophage. Lifespan is months to years. So there are some special names for macrophages, like in spleen we call them littoral cells, in liver we call them Kupffer cells, in kidney we call them mesangial cells, in lung pulmonary alveolar macrophages or dust cells, lymph node, that is sinus histiocytes, in bone we call it osteoclast, in placenta we call them Hofbauer cells, in CNS or brain we call them microglial cells. So these are the special name of macrophages which are important, so learn them. I will just repeat them: spleen littoral cells, liver Kupffer cells, kidney mesangial cells, lung pulmonary alveolar macrophages or dust cells, lymph node sinus histiocytes, bone osteoclast, placenta Hofbauer cells, and CNS or brain microglial cells. Now activation of macrophages. How are these macrophages activated? So there are two pathways. This is a picture from Robbins, and the two pathways are classical and alternate. So classically activated macrophages are known as M1, and alternatively activated macrophages are called M2. So what happens in classically activated macrophages, that all those microbial products, example especially toll-like receptors and interferon gamma or any endotoxin, what will do, they'll produce M1 and then secrete reactive oxygen species, nitric oxide and lysosomal enzymes, and interleukin 1, interleukin 12, interleukin 23 and some chemokines. Let me repeat what is happening. In classically activated macrophages or M1, you will be seeing the killing and inflammation, and in alternatively you will see tissue repair, fibrosis and anti-inflammatory effects. So in classically activated we have to produce killing and inflammation. In this, the toll-like receptors, ligands and interferon gamma or any endotoxin will produce M1 macrophages, which will produce reactive oxygen species, nitric oxide and lysosomal enzymes, which are responsible for the killing of many bacteria and fungi. So all those free radicals, nitric oxide, lysosomal enzymes, they are involved in the killing, and all the chemokines, all the interleukins 1, 12 and 23, they will produce inflammation. In alternative activate macrophages that are known as M2, they will be producing growth factors like tumor growth factor beta, TGF beta and some interleukin 10 and TGF beta. So this is being mediated by interleukin 13 and interleukin 4. What will it do? The growth factors and the TGF beta will do the fibrosis, and TGF beta along with interleukin 10. Interleukin 10 is mainly the mediator for anti-inflammatory effects. So this will at the end produce anti-inflammation. So let me repeat how this activation of macrophages is taking place. There are two processes, classical and alternate. In classical, M1 macrophages being produced, in which the end result will be killing of the bacteria and fungi and inflammation, and in the alternate pathway, the main ending is fibrosis and anti-inflammatory effects. This is mediated by the toll-like receptors, ligands, interferon gamma, and this is being done by interleukin 4 and interleukin 13. In this, the M1 produces ROS, NO, lysosomal enzymes which do the killing, and interleukins and chemokines which are responsible for the inflammation. In this, M2 produces growth factors and TGF beta which helps in the fibrosis, and interleukin 10 and TGF beta, they both produce the anti-inflammatory effects. So all this will again cover in the mediators of inflammation. So this table is very important. The last hallmark cells of the chronic inflammation is lymphocytes. So B and T lymphocytes are involved, and mainly the CD4 and the T lymphocytes do all the work. We'll just see the role of lymphocytes a little bit later on. Now let's talk about granulomatous inflammation. Now what is a granuloma? Granuloma is a collection of modified or activated macrophages known as epithelioid cells, which is surrounded by a collar of lymphocytes plus T lymphocytes plus necrosis. So granuloma, when we say granuloma, we say that when epithelioid cells, lymphocytic collar, Langerhans giant cell and necrosis, these are present. So what is an epithelioid cell? The activated or modified macrophage is known as an epithelioid cell. Why it is being called so? Because it has an epithelium like appearance. Why? Because these macrophages accumulate a large amount of cytoplasm, so nuclei become slipper shaped because of compression. If you can see in this picture that these are the macrophages and it has a lot of cytoplasm, and the nuclei becomes compressed and like a rod, so it's like a slipper. It's not circle anymore, it's like a straight line. So this is known as epithelioid cells. Now what is a giant cell? When all these epithelioid cells fuse, they form a big giant cell. For example, this is an H&E stain of the tuberculous granuloma, and in this we are seeing the epithelioid cells. The epithelioid cells fuse to form multinucleated giant cells. In between there is necrosis, and all of this is surrounded by lymphocytes, which is a collar of lymphocytes. So in this you can see all these slipper shaped, little small slipper shaped epithelioid cells, these big giant cells, and the lymphocytic collar. Now giant cells are also of many types. For example, they can be foreign body type, in which there is haphazard arrangement of all these nuclei. What I mean is they are present everywhere, like here and there. So this is mainly seen in talc and sutures. Second is Langerhans type. In this they form perinuclear or in the necklace shape or periphery. So all the nuclei are in the arrangement of a necklace. This mainly happens in tuberculosis. Next are the Touton type, which are present in xanthoma, nuclei present in the middle. Then anaplastic tumor giant cell and osteoclastic tumor giant cell are produced in some diseases of cancers. And the last is the Reed-Sternberg cells, in which there are binucleate nuclei, which is present in Hodgkin lymphoma. So what is the mechanism of a granuloma formation? It is a type 4 hypersensitivity reaction, which we will cover in the upcoming videos. And now here comes the role of lymphocytes. We talked about all the hallmark cells, monocyte, macrophages and lymphocyte. The lymphocytes involved were B and T lymphocytes, and mainly the CD4 plus T lymphocytes. So what is the mechanism of granuloma formation? That the CD4 plus T helper cells, they produce interferon gamma, which convert macrophage into activated macrophage, called as epithelioid cells, and then granuloma occurs. So this is just a basic mechanism, that the lymphocytes are producing interferon gamma, and which is converting the macrophages into epithelioid cells, and these epithelioid cells are just turning into a granuloma. So types of granulomas: foreign body and immune granuloma, the two types of granulomas. In foreign body, it is mainly due to talc, suture, and there is no immune reaction. And in the immune granuloma, it is a type 4 hypersensitivity reaction, which is T cell mediated response, and also due to the interferon gamma. So these are some diseases. Example of disease with granulomatous inflammation. So number 1 is tuberculosis, in which you can see caseating granuloma. Then next is leprosy, syphilis, and cat scratch disease. In cat scratch you can find stellate granuloma, in which the necrosis is of a star shape. sarcoidosis, which is non-caseating, Crohn's disease, which is also non-caseating, Wegener's granulomatosis, Church-Strauss syndrome, lymphogranuloma venereum, and berylliosis. All these are important. You should just remember the names, that what all are the diseases which involves granulomatous inflammation. If I repeat, there are 10 or 11: tuberculosis, leprosy, syphilis, cat scratch disease, sarcoidosis, Crohn's disease, Wegener's granulomatosis, Church-Strauss syndrome, lymphogranuloma, and berylliosis. So these are all the examples of the diseases which involve granulomatous inflammation. Now the last topic of this chronic inflammation and the inflammation chapter is the systemic effects of inflammation. So what happens, that the cytokines induce systemic reactions, also known as acute phase response. So this is mainly all the systemic effects which are being produced are known as acute phase response, and these are all cytokine induced. What all cytokines are involved are interleukin 1, interleukin 6, and tumor necrosis factor. So what all changes are produced? Fever is due to prostaglandins, which are produced by TNF and interleukin 1. Next, there is increased acute phase proteins, in which CRP, fibrinogen, serum amyloid A, that is SAA, which are produced by interleukin 6. Next, leukocytosis, in which there will be increased CSF, that is the colony stimulating factors. We can also see increased pulse, BP, decreased sweatings, shivering, and chills. Intravascular coagulation, hypotensive shock, metabolic disturbances. This triad is known as a septic shock condition, in which we'll also see insulin resistance and hyperglycemia. So these are all the systemic effects of inflammation. That number 1, these are also known as acute phase response, mediated by the cytokines interleukin 1, interleukin 6, and TNF. Fever is due to prostaglandins, TNF, and interleukin 1. Increased acute phase proteins. Acute phase proteins involved CRP, fibrinogen, serum amyloid A, that is SAA. These are mediated by interleukin 6. Leukocytosis is sometimes seen, in which there is increased colony stimulating factors, increased pulse, BP, decreased sweatings, and chills and shivering, and the septic shock condition. So thank you. Please follow my Instagram, my YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and join my Telegram group for further more videos.